Okay, well, welcome everyone to tonight's webinar, How to Keep Your Heart Healthy. My name is Rene Roth. I'm a natural therapist and homeopath and been in practice now for over 33 years, so I certainly feel I can speak from a position of authority on heart disease and certainly have encountered many cases of all sorts of conditions in my practice over that period in time. We're going to look at some of the more common conditions that confront me in practice, but also what the frequent occurrences are out there in society, particularly the high blood pressure and cholesterol, very controversial around cholesterol readings, blocked arteries, people having strokes, angina, heart murmurs, palpitations and so forth, and the associated conditions with heart, like overweight and obesity and diabetes as well. So we'll look at how we can integrate some of this together and give you some really practical strategies on solutions. And I hope that by the end of the webinar, you'll feel you're more empowered to be able to share this information with others and can refer them on to people who have some expertise. There are many people on the webinar tonight who have some experience with a great range of nutritional products that we'll talk about. So let's get into the body of tonight's presentation. So first of all, just a little bit of an overview. I'm going to look at some of the major clinical conditions that we see in practice, some prevention and lifestyle strategies, a more therapeutic supplementation regime, and also some key foundation products to ensure when you do make a recovery from some heart condition that you do land in a good place to be able to continue the benefit of that going long term. So let's look at some, very confronting statistics first of all, that heart disease kills 1 Australian every 10 minutes. It affects more than 3.5 million Australians and prevents 1.4 million people from living a full life because of the debility caused and the disability caused by this disease. Because there are many issues, whether it's the congestive cardiac failure or the hypertension that doesn't have people live a full and productive life because of the debilitating symptoms that this disease contributes to. Was suffered by 1 in 6 Australian in 2004, and some of these are old stats. When we look at statistics, they're often years behind, and we know that is often on the increase, unfortunately, because if obesity rates are increasing, so is heart disease rates, and definitely that's a known statistic. Claimed the life of almost 48,000 Australians, which was 35% of all deaths in 2004. Deaths are largely preventable. And a lot of these illnesses can be treated, prevented, by good lifestyle implementations, which we'll touch on a little bit later, and killed almost 11,500 Australian women in 2004, more than 4 times the number who died from breast cancer. And so we know cancer is on the increase, which is really sad, but certainly in the heart disease area, there's a lot of productive changes we can certainly implement. So the most common conditions, we're going to explore the high blood pressure, also what's known as hypertension, cerebrovascular accident, also known as stroke, atherosclerosis, angina, cholesterol, and arteriosclerosis. So these are the main ones we'll focus on because these are the most common, and we'll just touch on a little bit on arrhythmias at the end as well. Some people have irregular heartbeats or tachycardias and so forth. But let's start with high blood pressure. Everyone has heard of high blood pressure. And so what is it? Basically, it's a measure of the pressure of the force applied to an artery wall. And the blood pressure is the force applied against the walls of the heart that you take in the arm when you're having your blood pressure taken. It also reflects what's happening in the chambers of your heart. And one reading is the diastolic and the other is the systolic. And so one is a measure when the heart is contracted, so it's measured in milligrams of mercury, and the other is when it's relaxed. And we get particularly concerned when the heart is relaxed if the pressure is particularly high. That means that the heart has no window of time where the pressure is less in a relaxed state. So that increases the tension within the arterial wall, and that over time leads to degenerative changes and chronic conditions, and we'll certainly explore the impact of all that shortly. And so a classification or a diagnosis of hypertension is if your blood pressure is measured at least on 3 separate occasions of being 140, which is the systolic, over 90 as the diastolic. So there's some cause for concern if you have a consistently elevated blood pressure. We need to differentiate between a temporary increase, which might be due to some stress or an illness. We also know that there's white coat blood pressure, and this is that blood pressure you get when you see the doctor or perhaps your healthcare practitioner, who on that moment of anxiety, they're having their blood pressure checked, that it can actually elevate. And so it's not always a true indicator. And so therefore, sometimes we might have people wearing a monitor for 24 hours so they can gauge the blood pressure over a longer period of time. You know, what is it when they're at rest and sleep and so forth. And what are some of the risks in having an elevated hypertension blood pressure? Certainly, if it's chronic, can lead to stroke. And so when the pressure is consistently elevated in the cerebral region of the brain, you're increasing the risk of clot formation or a rupture of a blood vessel, like an aneurysm, a cerebral aneurysm. Perhaps it might happen in the heart where there's hardening of arteries. There could be some atherosclerotic plaque buildup, and the pressure this also causes to the heart, and also long-term, particularly kidney failure as well. So it's a chronic condition, and the longer it goes on, the more damage it's going to create systemically as well. Now let's look at cholesterol. So we're looking at the clinical conditions first and some of the factors that contribute to these diseases, and then we'll look at all the solutions. So cholesterol is a type of fat that is essential for many metabolic processes. Now, the key word there, it's actually a type of fat that is essential. We need some cholesterol. You know, it's not everyone's objective to absolutely minimize your cholesterol, because there's actually two types of cholesterol. The HDL is the good cholesterol and the LDL is the bad one. So think of L as the lousy cholesterol, all right? LDL, low density lipids and high density lipids. So the high density lipids are actually the good one. So we want to at least reduce the bad cholesterol in the system. And cholesterol is essential for many of the body's metabolic processes, including the production of hormones, like the sex hormones, particularly need cholesterol for their formation. Your bile needs it, and your vitamin D production also needs cholesterol, because your cholesterol is under the surface of the skin, and when it reacts with sunlight, it actually converts into vitamin D. So if we're minimizing our cholesterol, we're going to risk becoming vitamin D deficient as well. And issues there are if we eat a lot of foods rich in saturated fats, which are more your typical animal fats, are not good for you at all. Though we'll touch on a couple of good saturated fats in a little while. So there seems to be some correlation between elevated bad cholesterol, low density cholesterol, and coronary heart disease as well. But you know, at the end of the day, we all know some people who have a low cholesterol of the bad cholesterol and still have heart attacks. We know there are people out there who have high cholesterol and live a healthy, long and productive life. So there is some correlation, but it always doesn't run true. So it's about having a little bit of balance about this cholesterol, and we have to sometimes be cautious around the material that we're reading, because a lot of the cholesterol debate is driven by the pharmaceutical industry, and they are periodically reducing the standard levels of cholesterol, saying it has to be lower. And why? Because they are able to shift more drugs as well as the standard gets less and less. So health authorities recommend that cholesterol levels should be no higher than 5.5. Sometimes it's said 5.1, particularly if there are no other risk factors. But if it is, if there's, someone is smoking, they've got heart disease, it's actually suggested it should be lower again. And so there's a lot of literature out there which is perhaps very negative around cholesterol, but just remember we do need to have some cholesterol, because the typical approach for lowering cholesterol is the utilization of statin drugs. And from an American perspective, tens of millions of Americans are taking cholesterol-lowering drugs, and most of them are statins. And many experts claim that many more millions should be taking them. And statins are HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors. That is, they act by blocking the enzyme in your liver that is responsible for making cholesterol. So yes, we actually manufacture some cholesterol ourselves in our body. because we'll find some people, in spite of a very low saturated fat diet, they've still got elevated cholesterol. Just the factory within their body, particularly in the liver, is set to produce more cholesterol. So what we call hereditary hyper, meaning over, hypercholesterolemia. So those people may not necessarily be at a greater risk of heart disease because it's just within their template that they make more cholesterol. And the fact that statin drugs cause side effects is well established. There are now 900 studies proving their adverse effects, which run the gamut from muscle problems to increased cancer risk. And so here we just have a little chart here of some of the conditions that are caused by these statin drugs. And whether it's Crestor or Lipitor and so forth, muscle problems, polyneuropathy, which is nerve damage in the hands and feet, serious degenerative muscle conditions, acidosis, so increasing the acid in your body, so lowering the pH, depressing your immune system, pancreatic or liver dysfunction, including potential increase in liver enzymes, anemia, sexual dysfunction. So again, the sexual dysfunction comes because we need some cholesterol to make the sex hormones. So if you're minimizing the production of cholesterol, you haven't got the key building blocks there, and also the vitamin D as well. So cataracts and memory loss. Now, I've certainly seen many people who come to me and they're on the statin drugs and they've got signs and symptoms which correlate since their commencement on these sorts of drugs. And if we can find natural alternatives, which we often do, and in conjunction with their doctor, be able to reduce their statins, we have seen typically the myalgias and the arthralgias. That is, the myalgia is muscle pain and some of the joint pains in these people disappearing because they're able to get on a lesser drug, a lesser quantity, or perhaps even weaning themselves off it. Now, Dr. Ross Walker, an eminent cardiologist who practices in Sydney, he says if anyone needs to be on a statin drug, they should at least be on Crestor, not the Lipitor, but the Crestor because it's a water-soluble one. So if anyone out there is on statins, encourage them to transition to Crestor, and then we would see if we can actually assist them in transitioning off that medication. So if you take statins, you must take coenzyme Q10 because it is a well-known fact that statins deplete your body of coenzyme Q10, which can have devastating results. If you take statin drugs without taking coenzyme Q10, your health is at serious risk. Now, your body actually manufactures coenzyme Q10. It's made by the mitochondria in your cell. And in every cell in your body, you have mitochondria, and your mitochondria is like the factory energy production. And so it gives you energy. And the heart, being a very big muscle, actually can generate a lot of coenzyme Q10. So when you're on these drugs, which are reducing your statins, as an unfortunate side effect, it may be compromising the health of your heart at the same time. And so what we know about coenzyme Q10, it's actually a cofactor or a coenzyme. It's central for the creation of ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate molecules, which you need for cellular energy production. And your hearts have higher energy requirements because it's a very big muscle and therefore requires more coenzyme Q10 to function. And so we all could benefit from it. And also as we age, we tend to produce less coenzyme Q10. So topping up with a supplement and certainly having it if someone is on a statin drug is really important. And coenzyme Q10 not only provides energy, but also neutralizes free radicals. It's also an antioxidant. So it has quite an interesting diversity of effects here. So when your coenzyme Q10 is depleted, you enter a vicious cycle of increased free radical loss, radical damage, loss of cellular energy, and damaged mitochondrial DNA. So that's your cellular reproduction there. So the consequences of statins can be quite far-reaching. So definitely, you want to educate people to be more informed about what these statin drugs are doing and provide people with some safer alternatives as well. So let's look at atherosclerosis because this also has a cholesterol component too. So atherosclerosis, as you can see, is the development of arterial atherosclerosis may occur when deposits of cholesterol and plaque and minerals, particularly calcium salts, accumulate at a tear or a slight lesion in the lining of the artery. As the deposits harden and occlude the artery. The blood flow to the distant tissues decreases and a clot may become lodged, completely blocking the artery. So the top left is a normal cross-section of an artery. It's nice and clear. The diameter is absolutely, as maximum as it can be, allowing a good clear flow of blood. So with aging or free radical damage, there's a lesion, a tear in the artery wall, and so your body goes into a healing mode. So it will tend to create, a bit of scar tissue. So that builds up there, allowing for the deposition of circulating fats and minerals and cholesterol, calcium salts and so forth to start accumulating. So that builds up, as you can see in the third picture there, bottom left, it builds up over time. We're talking about years. And you can see then the diameter getting smaller and smaller. So therefore we have a certain volume of blood circulating through the body, but now it has less diameter to freely move through, so the blood pressure can increase. But when you have this smaller diameter happening, if there is some clotting or some plaque that breaks off, then you have an occlusion. And a total occlusion is a clot, and that can be catastrophic in terms of if it happens in the heart, it may be a heart attack. If it happens in the brain, it's actually a stroke. So the consequences of plaque buildup over time can be quite damaging. So we want to have a look at some strategies we can help actually deal with this too as we go through our presentation this evening. And this just gives you a little bit of a timeline to this one here. The first decade, third decade, fourth decade of life, that these things can typically be progressive unless one takes more proactive solutions to reverse some of this. So you get fatty streaks, you get some lesion, you get the atheroma is the laying down of the plaque and the fibrous plaque. So you get some hardening and sclerosis, and the walls become less flexible, and then you either get a lesion or a rupture or a clot happening. So this is all chronic degenerative stuff here as we reach that fourth decade when it starts happening. So that's what's happening when your coronary arteries are getting blocked. You actually have a buildup typically of plaque or a hardening of those arteries. So there's insufficient blood flow to the heart. So as I said before, the heart is a very big muscle. It has high energy demands. And so muscle needs good blood flow. And why does it need good blood flow? Because you're carrying oxygen to the muscle. So, the lungs need to be working well. We need a good transference of oxygen from the lungs into the bloodstream. It's carried around the body. The blood diffuses out from the blood vessels into the tissues, and it oxygenates the heart and allows it to pump well. But when we get this plaque buildup, when we get this thickening or hardening, we are limiting the supply of oxygen to the heart. And if you get an occlusion of some of these main coronary arteries, that's basically a myocardial infarct. That is, you have a loss of oxygenation, so the muscle cannot contract, and you have a heart attack. So people who have angina have coronary heart disease, and they are at significant risk of a heart attack. So when people have angiograms, it certainly is by inserting some dye and then scanning the heart, they can see if there are blockages in some of the arteries in the heart, and this is when they might put stents in to enlarge the arteries to allow the blood to get and oxygen to get to the muscles. So this is what some of the key things are doing about triple bypass or quadruple bypass heart surgeries, which are, as common as what they were many years ago. So our next topic here is arteriosclerosis. So arteriosclerosis is a stiffening or hardening of the artery wall. And this may happen with age. It happens due to free radical damage. It happens because there is a more fibrotic changes in the wall of the arteries. And this is through because we have a number of layers, the intima layer, the media layer, and so forth of these arteries. So when this gets stiffened, and if you not only get stiffening but also get plaque laying down, because some people can have a combination of arteriosclerosis and atherosclerosis, so it is a double whammy. And so you can see how there is a lessening of the blood flow in this as well. So we want to look at strategies maybe on having the walls of the arteries become more pliable and a bit more elastic again. And so we're going to look at solutions there too. So what are some of the causes of arteriosclerosis? Well, smoking is one of them, and a lot of this includes atherosclerosis as well. Gender males are more susceptible to the development of arteriosclerosis than females. So high cholesterol levels and high blood pressure, hypertension. So you can just imagine all this extra pressure and the stretching of these arterial walls will cause perhaps potentially aneurysms, which is a rupture of the blood vessel wall. You're losing elasticity, so you're not getting as good circulation to extremities as well. A diabetic condition will also accelerate and contribute to the development of both athero and arteriosclerosis. Yes, there may be hereditary factors, but just because there's heart disease or cancer or whatever in your family history doesn't mean to say that's going to be your lot in life, because there is a whole science of epigenetics where we can actually modify our inherited expression. And we do know that diet and environment and toxins and so forth have an impact on our gene expression. So we can modify that in a good way. We can certainly improve our outcomes. Advancing age because of free radical damage, stress can contribute to that. Type A personalities, type A personalities are quite rigid, they're driven. So what's happening with arteriosclerosis? So in a doctrine of signatures type of analogy here, the rigidity of a type A person also can reflect with the rigidity of the blood vessel as well. So, these people are high achievers, but also subject themselves to a lot of performance, stress, anxiety, and so that could potentially have some negative effects there. So it's always important for that personality type to be able to modify the negative aspects of maybe some of their obsessive behavior. Autoimmune diseases we also know can contribute to arteriosclerosis, and obesity will contribute to this as well. So what is the relationship between heart disease and obesity? So the more we put on weight, the more one is at risk of heart disease because of the increased load that is happening on the body. Okay, so that makes sense. And we know that statistically, those who are overweight are more likely to have strokes and heart disease and diabetes and increased risk of cancer and osteoarthritis and so forth. So a lot of that relates, and even gallbladder disease, the more overweight you are, because it perhaps suggests that the more overweight maybe not just the sedentary lifestyle and the poor diet, but maybe too many saturated fats. So if you're getting these calcium salts building up in the atheromas of your arteries, that perhaps there's also a stone formation in your gallbladder too. So there's definitely a correlation there. But let's have a look at the lower right one as well, because this is obesity-associated disease with immunological conditions. And we can see there, third down on the right, atherosclerosis. There is good evidence that atherosclerosis, so the laying down of plaque, is not just all due to bad diet and age, but there is an immune dysfunction there too. So if we're able to support the immune system, we may reduce that risk as well. Again, we go back to the fact just because there is heart disease, cancer, diabetes in your family history, doesn't mean to say that's going to be your genetic expression. You can take control and reduce that risk. Because we're talking about heart disease and obesity, a couple of quick testimonials around this as well, that we have a very effective weight loss program which systematically and simultaneously helps deal with the cardiac risk and also the weight issues. We've had many people come on board a program like our Fit Choice Nutrition and Detox program to lessen weight, and as a nice side benefit, their blood pressure has reduced, their cholesterol is reduced, and they've had lots of other benefits. So if someone actually is overweight and they have a heart issue, this is a really, really good place to start. We're going to look at some specific cardiac products and remedies and herbs and so forth shortly, but like clean up your act in terms of get rid of some of the excess weight. So do our phase 1 nutrition and detox, which is a 28-day window, getting on board with a number of nutritional products. There's colloidal liquid minerals, there's antioxidants, there's probiotics, there's green key powders, there's liver cleansers, kidney cleansers, and a cardiovascular cleanse in our Oracle product, which I'll go into certainly more detail shortly. So if you know anyone who's overweight and got some cardiac issues, this is a really, really good place to start, and we'd probably add in 1 or 2 other specific cardiac products to give that person that kickstart that they need. And phase 2 is about weight loss. You know, someone will shift anywhere from 2 to 10 kilos in phase 1, and that's a really good start, and shift anywhere from 5 to 20 kilos in phase 2. And we've seen this time and time again. And what's unique about this fat release program is that there is a maintenance component here as well, and that's unique, but also the nutrition and detox component is quite unique. And a lot of programs out there only just deal with weight loss and dieting, and it's the boot camp, or it's the meal replacements, or it's the packaged meals. They're not dealing with the metabolic issues, they're not dealing with the toxicity issues. This is why this is a genuine holistic weight loss program to support weight loss and cardiac function. And to give you an example of someone who came on board with a key objective to release some weight, but as a nice side benefit, got some cardiac improvements there. So we're talking particularly of Russell here. Now he released 15 kilos in 40 days of phase 2 of Fit Choice, and over time has released a total of 30 kilos. And their experience as a couple, to quote Erica, we have both struggled with weight all our adult lives and have tried many programs with no long-term results. We started the program and detox our body and our home. Did you hear that? Detox our body and our home. So it makes good sense as you're cleaning up your body and detoxing that you're not still using your toxic home-based home care, personal care products to load your body up again. We feel healthy and have a house and body clean of toxins. Russell is now off all his drugs for high blood pressure and cholesterol. I'll repeat that. Russell is now off all his drugs for high blood pressure and cholesterol. And he did this in conjunction with his doctor. And, doctors on the whole want to see you achieve good health. And if your cholesterol is improving and if your blood pressure is reducing, well, it's a given that you don't need to maintain that current level of medication. And importantly, they've set a great example for their 8-year-old son about what it is to lead a healthy and happy life. So here's someone about weight and diabetic complications. So Colin released 20 kilos in 40 days in phase 2 of Fit Choice. So a type 2 insulin dependent diabetic. Did the weight loss program. He was able to reduce his insulin from 15 units 3 times a day to 5 units twice a day. So his diabetic risk has reduced, his cardiac risk has reduced. And when we talk in terms of the diabetic risk, it is reducing the risk of diabetic retinopathies and blindness, of diabetic neuropathies and poor peripheral circulation and potential gangrene, because we know that is a genuine risk in many diabetics. So, Colin certainly has reversed a lot of those potentially chronic and devastating sequelae of having diabetes. So prevention is better than cure, absolutely. So it is about quitting smoking. It is about increasing your greens. It is about reducing your saturated fats. And I've got a chart which will go into that next. And obviously about having more exercise in your life. And just 30 minutes a day can help you lose your weight, which will help lower your blood pressure, will improve your release of endorphins, improve your mental state. There are studies out there showing that exercise is as equally beneficial as many of the antidepressants out there in the marketplace. And unfortunately, many of those antidepressants have side effects as well, weight gain, ironically. So here we have a natural means which is available to basically everyone to step up their exercise, get a bit of sunlight at the same time too, because that's important for your vitamin D. So you want to reduce your saturated animal fats. You want to have lean meats, okay? You want to reduce your excessive consumption of grains and be savvy and smart around this, please. Please choose more the healthier grains, and that might be your quinoa, which is a low GI grain with a good protein content, your millet and your maize, your buckwheat. These are a lot better qualities. Reduce your amount of wheat types of grains. Particularly, a lot of people are having gluten sensitivity, so that's in your barley, oats, wheat, and rye. because a lot of these grains have a high glycemic index. 2 slices of bread can increase your blood sugar more than 2 tablespoons of sugar. And that's a shock. You think I'm doing the right thing by having brown bread, but it actually raises your blood sugar considerably high. And if you're not active after eating these complex carbohydrates, your complex carbohydrates, your body breaks it down into sugar. And so therefore your cells need sugar as its form of energy, but the excess gets stored as glycogen in your muscles and your liver. But the excess on top of that gets stored as fat. The worst thing to do is to have fruit and a bowl of muesli or cereal before bed, or even some dry biscuits before bed, because that is going to get all converted to fat. Be aware of having too much dairy. Minimal consumption of processed and refined foods. Have plenty of clean filtered water. Manage and reduce your stress. You can't eliminate stress. There's always some stress, but you can actually manage it better and put strategies into place, whether it is exercise or whether it is taking time out, whether it is prayer work or meditation or yoga or whatever your thing is. Reduce your exposure and consumption of alcohol. That's really important as well, because there's fermented ingredients in there. That's going to increase your candidiasis. It's high in sugars. That's going to increase your weight gain and so forth. High exposure calories there. So what you want to increase and include plenty of clean filtered water. All right. We should say over the other side, sorry, reduce your tap water, but have good clean water. Have more wholesome foods, because you're going to get more of the germ, the wheat germ there. Okay, the vitamin E, we know the importance of vitamin E in health, heart. Have a more alkalizing diet. Have more vegetables. Not necessarily increase your fruit a lot. Have a good portion of fruit a day, but have more portions of vegetables than fruit, because fruit, even though it may be full of antioxidant, if you have too much fruit, there's too much fruit sugar. So a fruitarian potentially could become obese by all the fruit sugars. So have more vegetables. There's more fiber and more nutrition that you're going to get there, and particularly having your green leafy vegetables, your spinach and your kale, and you have all your broccolis as well too. The good oil is coconut oil. Now, coconut oil is a saturated fat. So in Melbourne, this time of year, it's definitely a solid. In summer, warmer temperature, it may be a liquid. But this is a very stable fat. It's good to cook with coconut oil because it doesn't become rancid. And what saturated means is that the carbon atom is saturated with 4 hydrogen carbons, so it's a lot more stable compared to a lot of the other oils which may go rancid when you heat them to high temperatures. And extra virgin olive oil is a preferred oil there as well. A lot of people are having more Asian types of food, so cooking with coconut oil adds that little bit of that flavor to it as well, and you're just lightly cooking your veggies so they're more on the raw side. So those sorts of things are a good move. And maybe instead of having a bed of rice, you might do the bed of quinoa. Have your exercise, daily supplementation, which I'm going to get into as well, and your sun exposure. Ideally you want to expose your skin, and that's 80% of your skin, to 20 minutes a day to maximize your vitamin D. Now, I heard a big what out there. Now, yeah, it's no one, particularly if you're living in Melbourne, is going to get 20 minutes a day all year round. It's too damn cold. You'll get hypothermia going out there some days. So this is why we do need to supplement. We do need to top up, because where we live and our diet and our lifestyles and the caliber of the food that we are consuming is not of the quality that it should be. So therefore, we do need to top up. It is an absolute fallacy that we can get everything from our food today because of the agricultural methods, and I'll touch on that shortly with some of the products. So these are my 5 core products for heart health. So if someone is not overweight but is looking to support their cardiovascular system, they got any of those preceding conditions, the arteriosclerosis, the atherosclerosis, the angina, cholesterol issues, I sincerely encourage people to get on this range of 5 products. So we've got our Ferroxin, your colloidal liquid minerals. We've got your essential fatty acid with krill. We'll go into that in more detail. We've got Atromax, which is our coenzyme Q10 product. We have Oracal or Oracal Plus, and we have Revinol as an antioxidant. So these are 5 products. So I'll give you a moment to write them all down, because if you've got any cardiac issues or circulatory issues, these are the products you want to be on. And don't say, wow, 5 products, that's too many. Well, you know, perhaps there are people taking their cholesterol tablets, they're taking their blood pressure tablets, they're taking their fluid tablets, they're taking their anti-inflammatory tablets. We're just swapping over, because it's almost guaranteed over time you can transition a lot of the drugs out of your system in conjunction with your doctor or your healthcare provider, and be able to convert over to a more safer, natural product at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, these products are concentrated food extracts. We shouldn't have to supplement. We should be able to get everything from our food and our diet. But as I said just a few moments ago, we're not getting enough of the good things, so we do need to top up. So let's have a look at some of these products particularly, and how they actually work, and why I select these products. So we have Oracal. Oracal is a broad spectrum, high potency multivitamin and mineral supplement. So I take this as my multivitamin. I suggest every male take this, whether it's Oracal or Oracal Plus as their multivitamin. But when we do what we call the oral chelation, we tend to do it more with this Oracal product. So it's a high potency multivitamin. I suggest every woman in their non-reproductive years, that is into menopause, also take this product, because we know during the reproductive years, whilst estrogen and progesterone are being manufactured in higher levels, that is cardio supportive, it is cardio protective. And as a woman down-regulates their hormones into menopause, that risk does increase. So this is going to support their cardiovascular system. So we've got a whole range of minerals and vitamins, which are vitally essential to our body, and taken in standard doses, it's a multivitamin and mineral supplement and has a role in reducing the risk of developing cardiovascular disease. So we're actually going to reverse that progression of plaque buildup, and we have seen this happen. We're going to tell you how you do it, and we're going to get some examples of it as well. So Oracal actually stands for oral chelation. So it's actually an oral way, an ingestive way to chelate out, and chelate means to claw out, like the claw of a lobster in Greek, to claw the plaque out of your arteries. Now, this analogy, before I go into this, goes back to the 1950s, where as a therapeutic process, they utilized EDTA, which is ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid. It was a process to chelate out lead in those who were suffering from lead poisoning. And back in the day, there were many industries that used lead, and there were many people suffering from the toxic effects of lead poisoning. So this was a medical treatment approved by the FDA in America to actually chelate, so to claw out the lead from the body. And they also found that not only did it claw out the lead, but it cleared out other toxins as well, like aluminium, cadmium, arsenic, and so forth. Now, also they found through inquiring minds that if it can also get out some of these other minerals, maybe it might also clear out some of the calcium. And calcium is one of the major minerals that build up in the plaque in your arteries as well. So they found that this particular treatment strategy was a means to help chelate out plaque from the arteries. In fact, there are some countries in the world, before they actually do bypass heart surgery, it is a requirement that people actually do EDTA. It's actually an intravenous method. It's a drug. It's not a natural supplement, all right? So don't get me wrong, EDTA is not a natural process, but it perhaps beats being lead toxic. It beats being, dying of heart disease. But we have a non-surgical method, you might say here. So this evolution to an oral form actually utilizes a synergistic combination of powerful minerals, vitamins, and herbs. And we use this in megadoses to clear out the plaque. So it also at the same time will reduce blood pressure, reduces plaque, and we know hawthorn has that same clawing out effect. Hawthorn homeopathically is Crataegus, and we use this homeopathically to help clear out plaque. It's been used by herbalists for centuries as well to clear out plaque that builds up in the arteries. And we have the benefit of garlic, and we all know garlic is a natural antibiotic, but it also supports the heart and has so many other benefits as well. And lime tree, also in herbal botanic medicine, has a benefit to reduce blood pressure. The folic acid reduces homocysteine levels, and we know the higher the homocysteine, which is a measured in your blood, increases your risk of heart disease as well. This product not only supports the removal of plaque from the arteries, but general toxins from all cells of your body. It supports and strengthens your entire immune system. It improves the muscle tone of the heart and artery walls. It increases blood supply to the extremities. And I would certainly be adding Green Key, which is one of our products. It's an alkalizing product consisting of about 35 different greens. And I'm sure many of you on the webinar tonight have heard about the benefits of chlorella, wheatgrass, barleygrass, spirulina, and so forth. So this is all those in combination, along with some dandelion and kale and spinach and so forth. So it's alkalizing, so it's subtly increasing your pH, because when we increase the pH of your body actually surrenders from the tissues these toxins, and whether it's, you know, environmental toxins or these lead toxins or the things in you're exposed to from your personal care products. So this is going a long way to clear out a lot of the plaque and toxins in your body. And definitely, if you choose to do this oral chelation regime, definitely add in the Green Key as well. So how do you actually go about doing this? Now, a little bit of a background story. There's a man called Paul Cloden, and he came onto these products made by New Ways International. I'll touch on them a little bit later, when he was about 70 years of age. And, you know, he hadn't lived the most great lifestyle of some fast foods and whatnot. But at the age of 80, he developed a little bit of angina, which, you know, at 80 is not bad, because a lot of people get those conditions certainly earlier. And so he goes off to his cardiologist, and his cardiologist gives him a stress test. So he is all wired up and gets on the treadmill. And yes, he develops some angina. So they're certainly showing that he has some coronary heart disease. He has some plaque and blockages in his coronary arteries of his heart. And they also did a Doppler scan on his carotid arteries and showed that they were significantly blocked. One side was like 90%, the other was like 60%. So as a first step strategy, they said, okay, we're going to clear out the blockage in your carotid artery on whichever particular side was worse. And so he said, okay, let's do that. So the surgeon does an operation where they're actually going to do some transfer of some arteries here. And what he was actually able to do, and so this plaque typically can be like concrete. It's been laying down over 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of it's, you know, you have to chip it off with a hammer and chisel. But it actually was soft and pliable in this man, Paul. And he actually pulled out a plug of plaque from the carotid artery. And so, you know, he tells Paul this after he came to, expecting a lot worse prognosis. And so Paul, being an intelligent man, said, gee, I've been taking these supplements, this Oracle at 3 a day, a routine dose of 3 a day. He's been on his antioxidant and mineral drink. I wonder if what I've been doing over recent years has supported a softening of the plaque. So on his own volition, he decided to megadose at 10 a day for a 3-month window, because he was going to go back and have, you know, his other carotid artery done, and then he was going to have his bypass heart surgery. So this was all on the cards. So every day for a number of days, he increased 1 a day. So you can see for the first month, you might do your standard 3 a day, and then you increase an extra 1 at lunch on day 29, an extra 1 at dinner on day 30, an extra 1 at lunch, then, and you keep going until you hit 3 in the morning, 4 at lunch, or 3 in the evening. Yes, some people might do 5 and 5, but 3, 4, 3 is what we ideally recommend. And you do that for a 3-month window. And after that, you then scale that back to your regular 3 a day. So this is like your oral chelating out of your plaque. Now, many cases I can speak of that I've seen in my practice. I've had cases of patients who've come in, who've had bypass heart surgery, say 10 years previously. And again, they've got angina, because did their heart specialist, their surgeon, tell them to go, oh, look, add some fish oil and cut down your saturated fats and lose some weight, improve your lifestyle? No, he knew he was going to get repeat business 10 years down the track. And that's good for his pocket too. So we have patients coming to us saying, I don't want to go through that experience again. You know, that is sawing open your sternum, pulling it back like a cage, and doing some bypass grafting there, coronary artery grafts. So, and which has all its risks of dying on the table, having a heart attack, having a stroke, or you know, not pulling through and so forth, and risk of secondary infection. So it's a high risk surgery. So Paul did this. He then goes back to his surgeon and has a Doppler scan. The one that they pulled out on the side that was previously 90% blocked was still clear, and the other side, which was 60% blocked, was now nearly clear. He had a stress test, got on the treadmill again, all wired up, no angina. Now, I have seen this repeated many times over, where patients have been able to avoid coronary bypass heart surgery. I know one case of a man who did this and in spite of his best efforts, still needed to have surgery, but his recovery far exceeded and absolutely surprised his surgeon. You know, he was out of hospital within like 3 days. It was a ridiculous amount of time, short period in time. He said, whatever you've done has certainly improved. In fact, he had very poor low circulation to his foot. He had poor pedal pulse and popliteal pulse behind. They were indetectable, and they all became quite robust during the course of this treatment strategy as well. So I know literally hundreds and hundreds of people, and not just from my experiences, who have done this auriculation regime very, very successfully. And here's some testimonials. Now, I just got this last week. In fact, this family might even be on the webinar tonight. Chris had his scan last week, as you know, and saw the specialist yesterday. The vascular specialist is very impressed and said, keep doing whatever you are doing and I'll see you in a year. He told Chris the blood flow in his left leg was 30% below the graph 6 months ago and now is 70%. That's pretty impressive. Chris is still taking his EFA, krill, and the 5 Oracal morning and night. So there are issues with poor peripheral circulation and had a graft, and it was static at about 30%. Doing the auriculation therapy, you know, in a whopping 40% improvement. The cardiologist is very impressed by what's happening here. This is, you know, just off the hot off the presser a few days ago, and this is, I think, some of our team from Perth who's produced this testimonial. So thank you to Chris there. Here's a testimonial here. You know, after telling my GP my family history of heart trouble, he referred me to Dr. McCready, a heart specialist in Wagga. At this stage, I had no symptoms of any heart problems, but thought I should go along for a checkup. After having a stress test and ultrasound, informed me that I had 3 blocked arteries leading to my heart, and I would need a triple bypass. So it was asymptomatic, so I had no symptoms, but lo and behold, you know, blockages, needs bypass. Stents were not an option. His heart was under stress, it was beating irregularly. He was prescribed Crestor tablets for his high cholesterol and made an appointment in 3 months' time. Now, just after that visit, went to a place called Grinnell Festival where they met someone in Newways, and he heard about the auriculation therapy and he decided to give it a go. 3 months later, and being about halfway through the chelation therapy, he attended his appointment with his Dr. McCready and told him he was taking a Newways auriculation therapy. Doctor examined him and said, keep on the therapy as something was doing me good. My blood pressure was a little better and my heart sounded a little better also. 3 months after having finished the auriculation therapy and back to Dr. McCready, I was feeling very well by then. Doctor gave me a very hard stress test and ultrasound. My heart did not miss a beat, and the ultrasound showed my arteries were clear of blockages. Doctor arranged for me to have an ultrasound at medical imaging to detect the arteries all over my body. Though it was discovered he did have an aneurysm in his aorta, but his arteries were really fine. So that aneurysm was a pre-existing condition. So the Newways auriculation therapy saved him from having a major heart operation. I'm very happy with the Newways products. So this is just, you know, another one of many testimonies we've seen over the years. So that's your Auricle product, a very powerful product and registered by the TGA here in Australia. So it's registered as a multivitamin, but hey, you know, we've got some extra benefits thrown in here as well. So let's move on to Atramax. Contains ingredients to nourish every cell in the body, so it's giving you energy. Now, coenzyme Q10, as I said before, is found naturally in the body, but diminishes with age and diminishes if you're on cholesterol drugs, right? Assists in the production of energy from food, helping to maintain cellular integrity and structure. All your muscles of the body require coenzyme Q10, and especially we've seen conditions like congestive cardiac failure and blood pressure, and clinical studies which show patients who are on coenzyme Q10 post coronary bypass heart surgery and after heart attacks have a better recuperative rate than those patients who were only on placebo. So there's some really, really good evidence, and even the Alfred Hospital has done some studies with coenzyme Q10 in their cardiac unit and certainly has proven the benefits of Atromax there. So the great thing about Atromax is it has other cardiac supportive ingredients there. So magnesium. Magnesium is such an important mineral in your heart function. So for people who have twitching and cramps or arrhythmias, definitely magnesium is really important. So this is key there. It's involved in so many enzymatic processes. In fact, our soil here in Australia is said to be very magnesium, selenium, and zinc deficient. So a lot of people are deficient in these minerals. And so when we just top up what your body needs through the support of a supplement, your body starts functioning a whole lot better. So when we support your body with some extra magnesium, it's helping the muscle undergo the contraction relaxation phase, okay? It helps relax the blood vessel wall, so it can help with blood pressure too. It's an antioxidant. This product also contains a beta-carotene, so that's important in the healing of connective tissues and mucous membranes. Again, some hawthorn, some extra hawthorn to do some more benefit around the clawing out of the plaque. It's also a heart tonic. It also will help get rid of excess fluid, a natural diuretic there, because certainly some people having some cardiac issues might have some compromised kidney function. So it's assisting your kidneys to eliminate some excess fluid, having a direct impact to reduce some of your blood pressure, and clearly, as I said, removing some plaque. The garlic in the Atromax will also help lower cholesterol. There's some vitamin E in there. We know historically the benefits of that for cardiovascular circulation, detoxification, and lowering cholesterol, and some black pepper. So this enhances the bioavailability of other nutrients, but also it's circulatory stimulant too. So it really helps dilate some of the peripheral circulation and capillaries. So when we help dilate some of those things, we're getting better blood flow to the tissue. We're getting better oxygenation. And so we start feeling better. So there's less pain, there's less myalgia. You're getting less numbness and tingling. You get better circulation and so forth. So this is key for all cardiac patients to introduce. Let's look at our next product. We've got EFA Krill. And the great thing about this, you can see on the right-hand side, we've got not just krill, but we've got chia seeds, we've got linseeds, we've got cranberries and evening primrose oil. So we've got 5 different oils. You know, the name is a little bit of a misnomer here, thinking that it's just krill. But you can't get another product with 5 different oils and alpha-lipoic acid, which is both an antioxidant in this product. So the benefit of 5 oils supporting so many things, your blood pressure, your cholesterol. It's going to help your joints, your immune system, your memory, your bladder, particularly with the cranberry oil, and kidneys too. So every cell in your body needs essential fatty acids. Every cell in your body is composed of at least a 60% lipid membrane. And so our diet typically is deficient in the really good omega-3s, but too high in the omega-6s. So we're getting too much omega-6 typically through our diet. So we need to really support the omega-3s, and this is rich in omega-3s, but has a nice balance of the omega-3, 6, and 9s as well. So absolutely key to support cardiovascular function, blood pressure, helps thin the blood a little bit. So when you combine this with some of the other products, it's going to clearly reduce your issues around clot formation as well. You know, many people with arrhythmias are given blood thinning drugs because an arrhythmia and irregularity in the blood pressure can increase that risk of clot formation as well. So Revinol is a antioxidant, okay? So this has a lovely combination of vitamin A, C, and E, grapeseed, turmeric, pine bark, and ginkgo biloba. So a beautiful combination of multi synergistic free radicals. So what we had before, where we had the arteriosclerosis, particularly where we have a stiffening, and it's almost like what's happening there, you're getting fibrosis. It's almost like scar tissue happening within your blood vessels and arteries. So we've seen Revinol can actually break down some of scar tissue, can break down fibrosis. It can actually support an improvement in the elastature of your connective tissue. So we've seen this evidence in people on the weight loss program, for example, where some scar tissue by virtue of stretch marks, people with varicose veins and hemorrhoids, where you have this loss of elasticity. So one is loss and one is scar tissue, but it helps in terms of the connective tissue and the collagen. So we get improvements in the tone. So you're improving with the addition of Revinol in your cardiovascular regime to improve the tone and the elastature of the heart. Okay, so that's really key there. So this combination is an anti-aging product. It actually is going to reduce your free radical damage as well. And free radical cause damage. It causes, in fact, there are something like 60 diseases, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and so forth, are well known to have a free radical causative factor there. Ferroxin is really important. Like, this is providing our minerals and trace elements. If you look at one of the middle picture there, plants may look the same, but they now have far fewer minerals. So the diagram on the left, you can see a whole fantastic profile of minerals and trace elements. But if you keep planting on the same soil, and if you're not through agricultural practices putting back a broad spectrum of minerals and trace elements. In fact, agriculture only really puts back superphosphate, which is nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, 3 core minerals, and that's all you need at the end of the day for foliage, blooming, and fruiting, right? You're going to get nutrient deficient food. So the food might look good, it probably doesn't taste as good, so this is why we need to top up. And colloidal minerals like ferroxin is a broad spectrum mineral and trace element supplement to top up what you're not getting from your food anymore. And putting it in a cardiovascular context, the electrolytes potassium, magnesium, sodium, and calcium play a crucial role in the function of the myocardium, which is your heart muscle. Movement of these ions across the semi-permeable myocardial cell membrane cause the voltage across the membrane to exceed a threshold and generate an action potential resulting in muscle contraction. So this is happening all the time, this exchange of electrolytes across muscle walls. So it contracts, relax, contracts, relax. So electrolytes carry electrical charge and are maintained to tight physiological concentrations through various mechanisms to ensure appropriate heart function. An imbalance of these electrolytes can have detrimental effects on the heart, causing and contributing to arrhythmia and cardiac arrest. So we want to make sure our body is supercharged with a broad spectrum of minerals and trace elements. So we've seen people who are able to improve their cardiac function, are able to improve their arrhythmias by virtue of getting on a product of ferroxin, which is a small amount of everything, okay? So a small amount of everything is absolutely fine. This is just an extrapolation and extension of your food. So very, very safe to take this product, absolutely. And you're certainly going to do yourself a lot of good by being on this particular product. Now, I just want to touch on Chalamin at the end here, because this has a role in supporting cardiac and a healthy electrolyte profile, because some people are very magnesium deficient. And so I spoke of magnesium and calcium and sodium, potassium. Those 4 minerals are particularly important in cardiac function, but in general, all functions. So this product here has some key minerals in a more macro dose to what we find in ferroxin. So have a picture. Ferroxin contains a whole lot of minerals and trace elements, but in a very small amount. But our body needs more minerals, specific minerals, than some others. Like, we need more calcium, we need chromium, copper, and iodine, iron, magnesium, manganese, phosphorus, potassium, zinc, and also some vitamin D as a vitamin. So this is a macro mineral. Chalamin, so these are often chelated minerals, so they're actually bound with an amino acid, and your body will always accept and absorb a mineral which is bound to an organic compound like an amino acid better than if it was just like iron. And this is a risk when a lot of people take iron supplements, say from their GP or the pharmacy, is that they are a mineral that's like chewing on a chunk of iron. It's not going to do you a lot of good, and you have to have a lot of it to absorb a little bit of it. And unfortunately, that lot of it you pass through your gut, and you have black stools, and you're constipated. So a lot of good that did. So we want some bioavailable iron. So the benefit here of Chelamin, Ferroxin, and your green key powder will naturally support some good iron stores, but you're going to support your heart. Now there are some, like in congestive cardiac failure or arrhythmias, where some patients may need to be cautious around taking potassium supplements. So this does have some potassium in, so you would need to check with your doctor. It's only 167 milligrams of potassium, so it's not a huge dose by any means. So you need to check with your doctor if this is a safe quantity to actually consume. If someone did have, particularly their arrhythmias or congestive cardiac failure. So for those of you listening tonight who just want to get, okay, gee, I've heard all that. I don't have an heart issue or cardiac issue, but I'd like at least a place to start to support my own health and well-being. These are some core foundation products that I suggest everyone should be on. So everyone needs colloidal minerals by virtue of what I said before, minerals and trace elements, and our core product here is Ferroxin. We all need a multivitamin. Oracal, particularly if you're doing the oroculation program, Oracal plus some extra antioxidants in there. If you're a female of reproductive age, you might choose to take our Endow Essentials. We all need our essential fatty acids, so that's our krill with our other essential fats in there as well. And definitely we want to have our antioxidant, which keeps our cells young. It's our antioxidant. It's keeping our cells younger. It's slowing down the aging process. And keeping flexibility of our tissues as well. And really, they are the 4 products that formed 4 of our 5 core cardiac ones, and we just added in Atromax. So what someone might do is, with cardiac issues, is get on these core 5 products and essentially maintain that long term, because your 4 nutritionals are going to be helping you on every other front as well. And of course, if you have other health issues of weight loss, you might explore the weight loss program. If there are arthritic issues, definitely there are products which definitely can be specifically targeted to help on a musculoskeletal front. And just looking at some of the ranges of products that are available, these high performance products are manufactured and supplied for you by NeuWays International. So besides there, on the bottom line there, we'll have a look at our active health products. So tonight we've looked at our targeted health, our cardiovascular supportive product. And on the bottom right there, our general nutrition is what I suggest there with our Ferroxin, Revinol, Oracal, and EFA Krill. Balanced health is more about hormonal health, active health for the sports people. But this company, NeuWays, has a whole range of other healthy products that are free of harmful chemicals and toxins, avoid over 3,000 chemicals, which are typically in your everyday products that you purchase from your store. So I suggest that you connect with the person that may have recommended you to get on the webinar tonight and ask them how to access these NeuWays products, just like the chap earlier who came across someone who spoke about the cardiac supportive products and was introduced to the world of NeuWays and clearly has changed his life significantly. So they got some great non-toxic anti-aging skincare and hair care. Home care products are there. The kitchen care, body care, dental, mouth care, of course the weight management that I touched on, and clean home living products as well. So there's a whole spectrum of products that will support you and your health and your well-being. So when you get off the webinar tonight, if this is all new to you, absolutely connect with someone and they'll be able to show you how to access these great products. And clearly from the testimonials that I've shared tonight, but there's so many hundreds of others, whether they're my patients or when I liaise with other practitioners and seeing what results are possible there as well. So thank you for listening tonight. I will just let you know what we have coming up for our next webinar. And we have women's health. That will be next Tuesday. So there are a lot of women out there suffering from a gamut of hormonal imbalances, weight gain, PMS, PMT, hot flushes, fibroids, insomnia, endometriosis, estrogen dominance, testosterone dominant in the polycystic ovaries and so forth. So some really powerful and effective solutions to help women reclaim their health. And so I'm sure you all know someone who's struggling out there with health challenges. And so there'll be a webinar next Tuesday evening at 8:30. So stay tuned for the invite for that to happen for next week. That will come out in the next day or two. And I apologise for being a little bit Melbourne-centric, but we have at the end of this month, on Tuesday the 30th of June, at 7:30 p.m. through to 9:30 p.m. at the Manningham Club in Bulleen, we have Eris Watkins, who is a well-known healthcare practitioner and has a great foundation of knowledge in the New Ways products. She is a mother of 6 boys, and she certainly knows about boys and their hormones and their sports, but also she'll give us a very broad perspective of what the New Ways nutritional products can deliver to you as well. So that is on the 30th this month. So that's it from me for tonight. I hope I've really been able to